All right, it looks like we are slowing down with people signing in, so we are going to go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's webinar about the wild and scenic Maurice River. My name is Lily Mullock, and I am the marketing coordinator for the Nature Conservancy in New Jersey, and today I will be facilitating the webinar. Before we dive in, I just wanted to quickly go over a couple of housekeeping items. Next slide, please. Perfect. We have enabled captions for this webinar. To access them, look for the closed caption button on your Zoom toolbar. There will be a button with two C's on it. If you click on that, you'll be able to turn your captions on or off. During the webinar, we will have the Q&A box feature active. So please, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, make sure to put them in the Q&A box. There will be time at the end of the presentation for a Q&A session with the panelists, and we'll do our best to address your questions either during the webinar or during the Q&A session. And lastly, we will be recording this webinar. Sometime next week, you will receive a follow-up email from us with a link to the webinar recording and any other relevant resources that come up during the presentation. And now I would like to introduce you to our presenters. From the Nature Conservancy's New Jersey chapter, we have Erica Yuryev presenting today. Erica joined the Nature Conservancy as a Cape May Stewardship Assistant in March 2022. She is now a Preserve Steward and Accessibility Coordinator, performing land management tasks, educating the public, and working to improve accessibility and inclusion at our southern New Jersey flagship preserves, including the Maurice River Bluffs Preserve, which, as the name implies, borders the Maurice River. Also joining us today is Carla Rossini from the Citizens United to Protect the Maurice River. Carla joined CU Maurice River team in 2015 as the program manager. At that time, she was responsible for the planning, organization, and management of programs and activities. She designed a host of new outdoor education and recreation opportunities, developed outreach initiatives, incorporated CU Maurice River in national citizen science initiatives, and built the foundation for large-scale stewardship projects. In January of 2021, Carla began her new position as CU Maurice River's Executive Director. We are very excited to be joined by our presenters today, and with that, I am going to turn it back to Erica to get the presentation started.
Thank you, Lily. Before Carla tells us more about the wild and scenic Maurice River, I want to share a little bit about the Nature Conservancy's work along the river. The Nature Conservancy acquired what is now the Maurice River Bluffs Preserve in 1992, eventually protecting 570 acres of land and providing a buffer from development. The preserve has 4.5 miles of river frontage. It is located in Sandy, South Jersey, an area with a rich recent history just by Millville, New Jersey. For those interested in local history, structures and remnants from the past are still very visible when visiting the preserve. Much of the land on which the preserve now sits was once a hub for sand mining and production of chicken feed for nearby farms. Barges used the Maurice River as a transportation route for the commodities that they carried. Structural remains from the preserve's industrial past, such as loading docks and pilings, are still visible from the Yellow Trail. Because of the excavation done for the sand mining, the Bluffs Preserve has hills and valleys that are not usually found in South Jersey. Some of the bluffs are as tall as 50 feet. Another historical feature found at the preserve is the old farmhouse, built in the late 1700s or 1800s or early 1800s and occupied for almost 200 years. The area next to the farmhouse was once cleared of trees and used for agriculture and vegetable farming. The house was fully intact until a fire in the 1990s, but the ruins can still be seen from the Blue Trail. The preserve is open to the public all year during daylight hours. It has 5 trails of various difficulty, a large parking lot, and a welcome kiosk with a trail map and preserve history. For those that prefer adrenaline to history, the Bluffs is also home to 6 miles of mountain bike trails. They are designed following International Mountain Biking Association standards and suitable for both beginner and experienced riders. Other features include an accessible portable restroom, an outdoor classroom, picnic tables throughout the preserve, and a pedestrian bridge and bird blind located on the Orange Trail. For visitors who want to enjoy the water, there is a kayak launch, fishing opportunities, and a floating dock during the warmer months. The dock, which is located on the Blue Trail, is a perfect spot for birding, photography, or taking a break to enjoy the views of a large bald eagle nest and an osprey platform. Speaking of osprey, I wanted to mention that the Nature Conservancy manages 27 osprey platforms, some of which are located along the Maurice River. Managing the platforms includes checking their condition and making necessary repairs in the spring, and visiting active nests to monitor chick success in the summer. Other species that make their home in the protected land of the preserve and surrounding area include foxes and box turtles. The area provides crucial stopover habitat for migrating and breeding birds, including songbirds, waterfowl, and raptors like the bald eagle. Productive freshwater ponds are havens for dragonflies and other insects and breeding sites for frogs. The preserve is home to unique plant communities, including lady slipper orchids and some of the largest wild rice marshes in the state. Whether you're interested in history, hiking, mountain biking, or nature viewing, I hope that what you learned today from Carla and I will inspire you to visit the Maurice River Bluffs Preserve and surrounding area. Now I will pass it along to Carla from CU Maurice River about the wild and scenic Maurice River.
Hi, everyone. So as I'm getting set up here, I would like to first thank you all for deciding to share your lunch hour with us, or that you came in on such a beautiful day. I hope afterwards you guys will click off and head outside to one of your favorite nature areas just in your backyard. So it's a gorgeous day, and I hope that our presentations will inspire you to get outdoors. So I'm Carla Rossini. I'm the executive director with Citizens United to Protect the Maurice River and its tributaries. And in case you can't just rattle through that name, we also go by CU Maurice River. And we have the great honor of working to protect our local river, the Maurice, for future generations' enjoyment. So this here is a picture of the Manu-Muskin, and that little triangle in the back is my dream house. It is owned by someone else. However, what is important to note here is that the land surrounding that property is also owned currently by TNC. And we're extremely grateful here at CU Maurice River for our partnership with TNC and the quantity of acres that we've gotten put into preservation into perpetuity with their help. So CU Maurice River is not a land trust. I like to describe our land preservation work as backroom brokering. So we, as the boots on the ground, like to braid together all of the resources that are needed to get lands into preservation and into other trusts' hands. So I would like to thank TNC for all of the work that they've done in Cumberland County and on the Maurice River that's made the wild and scenic designation possible, and that's helped to also preserve the quality of the outstandingly remarkable resource values of the system. And we'll get back to that term a little later. Don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated by that term. So where are we? Many of you are probably familiar, but this is the watershed. We're in South Jersey. The watershed occupies most of Cumberland County, a bit of Salem County, a sliver of Gloucester, and a sliver of Atlantic. So it is 385 square miles. So it's a rather large watershed for the Delaware Bay and Delaware River. And so Maurice River was founded in 1979, basically out of a need for advocacy. There was a toxic waste dump that wanted to install itself, or the owners wanted to build it in between the Manymuskin and the Menantico rivers, which are tributaries. And so a group of citizens, hence Citizens United, put their stewardship to work and started reaching out to the powers that be and the broader community to speak up for the unique qualities of the river and the need to preserve it and to protect it from such ill-begotten development ideas. So that's how we got our founding in 1979, and we were incorporated as a nonprofit in 86. And during that time is when we were also working to help the National Park Service with the study of the Maurice River for designation. So at a glance, if we look at our mission is really about protecting the Maurice River through education and engagement. So just about everything we do, what we want is to involve the community, the greater community. We involve the greater community in science, in volunteerism, in education opportunities. And it's really about this forming a community of stewards who are wanting to use some of their free time to protect this amazing backyard resource that we have, the Maurice River. So we're a membership organization, and we have some 3,000 members, and it's really them that push our mission forward. If I could use like the metaphor of an orchestra, we might be the band leader, but we need all the instruments to make the music. And that's really what our membership and volunteers are. So, and what do they do? So again, it's all about participation. It's about stewardship, whether it's building rain gardens, doing cleanups, building trails, collecting water quality data, or doing surveys of rare and threatened plants. They also participate in our education programming. For example, in March, we will have Wild About Cumberland, and this year we have 14 schools signed up with 700 kids, and we, in a 3-day period, will get all of those schools and kids out on the nature trail. And we partner with the Bayshore Center by Valve, who also runs a workshop circuit as part of the day's programming. So we're super excited about that. And then we also create awareness through adult education opportunities as well. And those 4 actions, or the efforts of those 4 categories, is really the basis for the pillars of what CU does. We filter all of that into fieldwork, research, and advocacy. So the Wild and Scenic. The Wild and Scenic Act was established in 1968. And now there are some 226 wild and scenic rivers across the United States. And the purpose of the wild and scenic designation is that at one point in time, and maybe some of you remember this, we had rivers that would flow different colors depending on what effluent was being put in them at what time of the day. We had rivers that were catching on fire from all of the contamination in them. And we had a lot of rivers that were being dammed at the time. So citizens rose up and they asked Congress to please protect rivers that were of outstanding character. So they came up with the Wild and Scenic Bill. It was passed, And then they went out and they studied some 2 million river miles. And of those 2 million river miles, only 1% qualified for wild and scenic designation. And of that 1%, even today, only 1% has actually received wild and scenic designation. So just imagine what that means for the quality of the rivers that have been designated. So what is the criteria for designation, right? So the rivers must be free flowing. They have to have high water quality, and they have to have at least one outstanding resource value, one value that is deemed to be of national, international significance. And so when a river is designated, they join the Wild and Scenic program and receive protections through the National Park Service. So many of these 226 rivers across the country are within national parks or on federal lands. But there are just 19 that are not in national parks and not run by the National Park Service or the DOI. They are actually run by local entities, local organizations. And they're all on the East Coast of the United States. You can see a map here of where they are. There are 19 of them currently. And 18 of those are in the Northeast, and one is in Florida. The Maurice, excuse me, the Maurice was designated in, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. What's really interesting about New Jersey is that New Jersey has 3 wild and scenic rivers: the Great Egg Harbor, the Musconetcong, and the Maurice. And along our border, we also have the upper and the lower Delaware. For New Jersey, one of the most populated states in all of the United States, to have, let's say, 5 wild and scenic rivers, counting the upper and lower Delaware, is just phenomenal. It speaks to the citizens who put energy behind the designation and the study process. And it also speaks to the quality of our rivers, those who that were never dammed, and those who benefited from the efforts of organizations like TNC, who jumped on, recognized the value of this area, and preserved a lot of land. So, the Maurice River was designated in 1993. It was actually the second river in the partnership program, or the second river to be incorporated into the partnership program, only behind the Great Egg. So the Great Egg in South Jersey was number 1. And then quickly afterwards, I think they were designated in 1991, and then the Maurice was designated in 1993. And the Maurice, it's not the entire waterway that is designated, but there are 35 miles of, that are designated. And that includes the upper Maurice. I don't know if you're going to be able to see my pointer. So the upper Maurice is here. So it goes from Morristown, if you're familiar, here, which is basically by the Morristown Causeway, up to Peak Preserve, just north of the Bluffs, on the southern end of Millville. And it includes Manantico Creek, the Muskin River, and as well as the Muskie River. And when you look at, right, so they say that nature doesn't really adhere to political lines. So we have to look at what does that mean for the municipalities. So we have 5 municipalities within the Wild and Scenic designation: Buena Township, City of Vineland, City of Millville, Maurice River Township, and Commercial Township. During the designation process, all of these municipalities had to sign on to and agree to the Wild and Scenic, and part of their obligation was to create a local management plan for the Maurice River. So a management plan was created. All of these municipalities municipalities signed onto the management plan, and in doing so, they incorporated river conservation within their master plans. So they promised, or they committed themselves to the preservation of these outstanding remarkable resource values within their planning. So what are these outstanding remarkable resource values? It's such a mouthful that I say it every day and I still can't get through all the words. But so before I said that every river in the wild and scenic has to have at least one ORV. In the case of the Maurice, I have only selected a few of our ORVs that are listed in our designation. So since I'm speaking with TNC, I thought we should talk about the habitat quality because they play a really important role in preserving that for the river. And we have vast tracts of preserved land. If you look at Cumberland County from an aerial and you look down and you compare it to the rest of New Jersey, it is amazing how green our watershed is. We have these vast preserves like Peasley that connects right into the TNC's Manny-Muskin Preserve that connects right into the Menantico Ponds. And I believe that that preserve, all of that contiguous preserve equals well over 30,000 acres of land that is preserved within the Maurice River watershed. And then we could also look at Bevan down south, or Natural Lands, Turkey Point. So Cumberland County in general really benefits from contiguous, and its habitats benefit from contiguous preserved space. Lack of human intrusion, high water quality, because we have all of this preserved land and so much of it is along the river itself. Natural water processes can happen easier, right? Without intrusion from development or repercussions from degradation from development. But also those buffers filter out so much contamination, maintaining the water quality. So during the designation process, right? The study that happened, you go to the designation process. The Manny-Muskin had some water. It was even deemed as pristine at the time. Muskin watershed itself. The geographic location, and in the warm up to this presentation, they asked if I had anything in here about the habitat quality. And I said, oh, I have a slide somewhere else that we can take a look at, right? And to look at why. So another one of the ORV, the outstanding remarkable resource values of the Maurice River, is the biodiversity. We have an extremely high biodiversity, 53 species of New Jersey's endangered and threatened list are in the Maurice River watershed. And so why is that? First, preserved land. And second, and this is our watershed again, if we look at the position of the watershed within the world, we can see that we have where the border of the Pinelands Preserve, right? So the Pinelands Preserve goes through the Manny-Muskin. It's at the headwaters of the Menantico, and then it cuts down and includes the Manny-Muskin. So basically, half the river of the Manny-Muskin is in the Pinelands, and the other half is not in the political Pinelands. And then you also have the Muskie River here, which is also a Pinelands river. So the watershed with high quality of preservation, the Pinelands, the New Jersey Pinelands Preserve, and then we have the Delaware Bay, right? The Delaware Bay and its vast wetland complex, and its high quality estuarine values. The food availability in the Delaware Bay is just astronomical and has been recognized through international designations like Ramsar and many, many more. I'd really recommend that you take some time to look those up. The shorebird and horseshoe crab spawning and migration that happened. And then we are also, the Maurice River receives some 30,000 migratory waterfowl during the winter months. And that's because of our location on the Atlantic Flyway and these vast wetland complexes that also host a true diversity of wetland flora species, right? So another one of the Maurice's, I'm going to call them ORVs from now on, the outstanding remarkable resource values. So another one is we have New Jersey's largest stand of wild rice, and at the time of designation. And that plant is a keystone species. A keystone species is, let's say, a species that's really at the bottom of the food chain and is just consumed by a high number of fauna that's higher on the chain than it. And if you lose that species, everything, all of the species above it could collapse with it as well. So this plant is extremely important for our system. Some of the other ORVs that I just kind of cherry picked a little bit is, the high diversity of bird life. At the time of designation, there were only 2 mating pair of bald eagles in the Delaware Bay area. And on the Maurice, there was only 1 pair of osprey. And a lot of work has, wildlife management work has been put into place. CU Maurice River manages over 40 osprey platforms on the river, and just about all of them are occupied now. And many of you have probably seen that the osprey, as well as the bald eagle, have been delisted recently. And though that wildlife management success is, we need to recognize New Jersey DEP's role in it, but also the role of citizens and stewards and people who wanted to decide, wanted to volunteer their time because they had a true appreciation for the outdoors. Someone in their life, sometime in their life, they had the aha moment, and someone in their life inspired them to have it. And we're really looking to do the exact same thing for more and more people, right? So, and we have the preserved river banks and the buffers along the river that protect the water quality, but also because we have like all of this open space and high water quality, we had a lot of food availability for the bald eagle and the peregrines. So a lot of the efforts to restore the population of the osprey, the peregrine, and the eagle happened on the Maurice River and the Bayshore region. I'm just going to click through this slide a second. So the wild rice meadows, I'm going to stop here for just a second. Here we see then waterfowl, we have 13,000 that come through. We're located on the Atlantic Flyway, New Jersey's largest stand of wild rice that's feeding the migratory shorebirds, songbirds, raptors, rails, waterfowl. I read the other day on an NJDEP site that it's estimated that the Maurice River has the highest population and healthiest population of rails in the state, which I didn't know. That was really neat to read. And so the wild rice is really supporting just this huge suite of animals, expansive suite of animals. And I'm sure you all know this, but down here in South Jersey, we're always we're proud that we have all this green space. And you know, people when we travel other places, they, oh, you're from New Jersey, and we describe where we're from. They say, well, that doesn't sound like New Jersey. I'd like you all just to take a moment and look at the head of tide on the Muskin. This is a picture of New Jersey, of South Jersey. This is the TNC Preserve on the left, the Muskin Preserve, and on the right, you have NJDEP lands. And look at the connectivity there. Just imagine how wildlife can live out their life cycles in this space. It's just amazing, just amazing. But we do have some threats to the health of the system. Climate change is a major one, right? We have saltwater intrusion. So wild rice is a freshwater tidal plant. It can take some increase in salinity, however, really, and it can take a little bit of increase in inundation, but not much. So as we get more water and more salt coming in, we're seeing that the wild rice is being impacted. And we're also seeing that there is invasive species intrusion, specifically Phragmites. And we've lost hundreds of acres to Phragmites. And so, whereas in the 80s and 90s, our organization was extremely involved in the management of the osprey, which was so highly needed, and the management of bald eagle, where we were, filtering volunteers into the Bald Eagle Project. Now, conservation is dynamic and priorities need to shift. We do have a guiding document in this. Our guiding document is the National Park Service's Comprehensive Management Plan and for the National Wild and Scenic Maurice River and protecting the ORVs. So a lot of our management work or habitat management work right now is focusing on understanding the threats to New Jersey's largest stand of wild rice and working to protect the wild rice. With that, because I know I'm well over on time, I apologize, Erica and Lily. I would like to finish my presentation with the invitation that I gave you at the beginning to get outdoors. If you are interested in coming out and exploring some of the wild and scenic places of the Maurice River, we have a very healthy calendar of events where we explore both natural and cultural resources of national value that are listed in the wild and scenic designation. And you do not need to be a member to come out and play with us. You just come play. If you would like to see our calendar, you can hop on our website at cummauriceriver.org. There's an interactive calendar there. If you become a member, we also send out calendars every quarter, just like these two images here, and it lists absolutely everything that we have going on, as we know the details when we're writing it. So it's always good to go on the calendar and check. And if you were so inspired to make a difference for the stewardship of the Maurice River and really wanted to get involved, I would love to invite you also to become a member. And with that, Lily, I think I want to kick the ball into your court.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Erica and Carla, for that wonderful presentation. I don't know how everyone else is feeling, but I am in serious need of a trip to the Maurice River now. So before we open up the Q&A session, I just wanted to remind everyone that's logged in about our next webinar, Critter Crossing, Making New Jersey's Roads Safer for Wildlife and People. I'm going to put a link for the registration form in the chat, and then we will also include a link for that webinar in our follow-up email, which again, you can expect to get from us sometime next week. So again, we're about to open the floor for questions. If you have any questions for the presenters, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box. But we will get started with what we have now. Let's see. Are there kayak or canoe rentals available? I'm guessing that this means, does the CU Maurice River offer kayak or canoe rentals? And if so, are
So
they available during the warmer months?
yes, so we run kayaking excursions throughout the year, and they're all listed already. So for the 12 months, they're already listed on our website. We do not provide kayaks for people. However, when people ask us nicely, we tend to find one for them. So we can't rent them to you, but our mission is to get people outdoors, and we take it really to heart. So if we can find an available kayak, we will try to get you out. And if you don't, can I share one more time, since we have a kayaking question?
Sure.
I wanted to point a tool out on our website for kayakers. Are you able to see that, Lily?
Yes, it looks beautiful.
So, because I also see another question there that is about kayak launches within the Maurice River and at the bay. And we created the Maurice River Watershed Explorer. That's an interactive map online. And the Maurice River. I hope it doesn't turn me into a liar here, because I think my internet's a little slow. And so it explains about the river. But on here, you also have explore the water, explore the parks, explore history and culture, and local services supporting ecotourism. And so here on Explore the Water, we have little write-ups. We have a map. 1 second. Launches. And then we also have, there we go. So you can access this on your phone too, but we have all the different kayak launches in the area listed. And then we also provide a little bit of a description of those different water trails and also the access point. Some of the access points are a little hard to find or might not be in the best state of repair. So we try and give a little, our insiders input so that you can get out and experience. We also have, trail descriptions here for your, oh, that's water trail. Trail descriptions. So this is actually of the Bluffs, TNC. That should make you happy. That's actually a picture of the Bluffs. And here we have another map that it highlights the different upland trails that you can do, and also has observation decks on it. And then under history and culture, the Pinelands villages that are in the watershed, and Captain's villages in the watershed. It's all listed there. Local restaurants. We're working on local restaurants and farm stands next. So this is a work in progress. If you go out, this is a brand new tool for us. If you go out and you see that we have something wrong, or maybe we could characterize it a little bit better, shoot me an email. We want all the input we can possibly get on this.
Awesome. What a great resource. Thank you for sharing that. I'll just make a note. We'll be sure to include a link to that map in our follow-up email next week. And then, of course, I just have to give a quick plug. We do have a kayak launch, like Carla was saying, at the Maurice River Bluffs Preserve. And that from the launch to the Delaware Bay is about 15, 16 miles or so. Okay.
So Lily, one thing that I would say is that paddling the Maurice River south of the causeway can be a bit treacherous.
Okay.
The tide, right? So the water's deep, and we count in knots the water down there. I mean, it's fast, and it really whips around from the reaches and the bends. And so you can get in trouble down there. We recommend, I mean, if you're a very strong paddler and you're really good on open waters, take it into your own hands, make sure you have the Coast Guard number with you, and a whistle and all that. But we recommend staying north of the causeway. The Muskie, the Manu-Muskin, the Menantico, main stem Morris, from the causeway, Morristown, up to the Union Lake Dam. However, there are nice launches to explore the bay. You don't have to be afraid either. So you have Hansey Creek, which is right on the bay, and Natural Lands did an entire mapping project of those trails in there, and they're actually also marked, like, you know, like they have, you know, yellow trail, blue trail, and then that connects into the Beaver Dam area as well. So I would really recommend going on Natural Lands kayak trails if you're interested in, and they also, if you find the PDF, it'll also outline like what time to go. You need to know your tides on the tidal Morris and how to manage them, because if not, it's like being on a treadmill, but not at home.
Right, let's see here. We have a couple of people asking about the Phragmites, it looks like. Is there anything that can be done to kind of control them, stop them from interfering with the wild rice, anything like that?
So there are different ways of controlling Phragmites. The more nature-based way would be to allow salt water in, or it doesn't tolerate salt water, I should put it that way. So salt water will kill frag. However, when we're talking about the Maurice River, we're talking about freshwater tidal, freshwater brackish, right? So wild rice, for example, can only tolerate up to 5 parts per thousand. And it can't handle inundation, like increased amounts of inundation. So what we're seeing is we're losing wild rice meadows to open water, right? So what people don't really want to hear is that in that context, right now at this time, the way to control Phragmites within freshwater is not within freshwater, within freshwater tidal systems, is your chemical option. But this chemical treatment is done in a very precise manner. And a lot of caution is used to make sure that there isn't drift, that there aren't other impacts from the herbicide, right? So, you know, we're losing hundreds of acres to monotypic stands of Phragmites, which means we're losing biodiversity in one of the most biodiverse systems in all of New Jersey, and possibly it probably compares well on the East Coast, right? So work needs to be done to halt the spread of Phragmites, but we need to choose the areas that we're going to put that energy into, right? We can't just willy-nilly go out and spray, but there are some systems in some areas that, for example, the Manu-Muskin. I want to go back to the monotypic stand actually, because the other day I read, so on the Manu-Muskin, there's a plant that's called sensitive joint vetch. It's a freshwater tidal plant. And I was reading a report on it the other day, and I learned something new. I love that about my job, I'm always learning something new. That when you put down a quadrat, so a meter squared, and you do a survey within a meter squared, and there's sensitive joint vetch in that meter squared, there tends to be an average of 50 species. So if we translate that to the insect world, right? The macroinvertebrate, everything that's feeding on 50 species. And now that habitat is getting overrun by a monotypic one plant with some little tiny unhealthy plants like poking in here and there. Imagine how that translates into the degradation, decline of biodiversity in a system. I hope that was a fair answer and a complete answer. If you have any more questions, I'm willing to continue that conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question here, are there opportunities for volunteers to help maintain the access points along the river?
Oh, we would love to explore that with a volunteer who was interested. And so one of the things that we love around here is an ambitious volunteer. And we love to put tools in their hands, give them safety, all the safety things they need, and reach out to the powers that be to make sure that their work is sanctioned by municipalities and the like. So if someone were out there and wanted to work on trail accessibility or water trail accessibility, I would really enjoy them to reach out to us.
And then we have, is there a particular time of year that is busiest or most active for bird activity?
Oh my God, all year long, all year long. So right now I've been in awe of the amount of raptors that I'm seeing because of the snow and the cold, and also the trees aren't leafed out. So just driving around in the farm fields, the kestrels and I mean, it's just impressive. And then we'll be going into our waterfowl season, right? When you can actually get out because the hunters aren't out. And waterfowl season in the Maurice River is something to experience, like down at the Bayshore Center or headed out to Turkey Point, Beaver, Fortescue, up from the Bluffs, typically from the Bluffs, between the Bluffs. And so the Bluffs is on one side of the river. On the other side of the river, you got Peak. And in between there, you get to see some great pintails. Like those wetlands, if you can walk up on one of the bluffs at the Bluffs Preserve, and you can set up your tripod with your scope right into a wetland, come February, you're going to see some great ducks. Then comes spring, right? And then there's the natural phenomenon of the horseshoe crab spawning and the shorebird migration. I mean, our beaches are just loaded. I mean, you couldn't walk them. And it's just loaded with sanderlings and red knots and ruddy turnstones. Well, we wish there were more red knots, but so oyster catchers, they're doing a study on oyster catchers because at first they thought that it was just the Atlantic that had a population, like a sizable population. Here we are, we're like, but it turns out that they figured out that the Delaware Bay had a really big population. I never thought to report it to anyone. I thought everybody knew that we had a healthy population of oyster catchers. So Conserve Wildlife is doing a study on the oyster catcher population on Delaware Bay. Super cool, right? And then before I mentioned the rail population, the warblers, it's all year long. All year long. We actually have a program that's called What It's Like to Be a Bird. And it's based off of, do I have that book here? It's based off of a book that just recently came out, I think last year or 2 years ago. And so what we do is we do one class session where we talk about a suite of birds. So this year I think we're doing we're doing one on gulls because everybody forgets to learn about the gulls, right? Then we're doing one on woodpeckers. We're doing one on oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. The wading birds and oh my gosh, the jays, the ravens, I'm forgetting a word right now. It's going to be fun. Be there. And then afterwards, so we do the class on a Tuesday, and then that Saturday, which is the fourth Saturday of the month, we go out in the field in order to see these suites of birds in action in the height of their presence in the Maurice. So come play.
Sounds like a good time. Let's see, this sounds like a question for Erica. If someone were planning to visit the area, what route would you recommend for the best views at the preserve?
Oh, do you mean like which trail to take? Do you think?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. Depends on what you want to see. I personally like the Orange Trail. That's where the bird blind is and the pedestrian bridge. And you can also make a little turn and get to the floating dock on the Blue Trail. So I think it's not too difficult. You're not going too far, but you get really good views.
That trail is fantastic. And we went out spring last year. And as we were walking the Orange Trail, we have, I think it was just two of us. We're doing a reconnaissance for an outdoor education day. And all of these snapping turtles were coming out of the sand as we're going. We're like, oh my God, this is so amazing, right? Like it was the coolest thing. Got the best pictures of snapping turtles I think I've ever had. And then, well, some of them were laying nests and some, I got to think about that. It was amazing. I'm trying to think though. No, they were coming out. They were coming out. I remember that. They were not nesting. Anyway, and then we walk down the trail and a smooth green snake goes right in front of us. And we keep going down and there's a like a 5-line skink. And then we get out to the bird blind. There's a nest in the bird blind, like a nuthatch nest in the bird blind. And we're looking out over the meadow and there's eagles. That's a great trail.
Sounds like
That's
nature
fun.
was putting on quite the show for you that day. Hopefully everyone who visits the Bluffs
It
gets
does
a
a
similar
lot at the Bluffs.
experience. Yeah, I think every time I've gone on the Orange Trail, I've come across a box turtle. So
Yeah.
hopefully people who visit get that fun experience. Well, I think we are going to wrap up the webinar. Thank you both so much for the presentation and for answering the questions. Great to learn about the Maurice River Bluffs Preserve and the wild and scenic Maurice River, of course. And thank you to everyone for tuning in today. Again, you can expect to see a follow-up email from us sometime next week with links to this webinar recording, link for our upcoming webinar, and then some of the resources that we mentioned during the call today. So again, thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us, and we hope to see you for the next webinar. Have a great day, everyone.